Silverstone is the best track F1 will visit each year, and I'm going to tell you why. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Aaron, and today we're looking ahead to the British Grand Prix, and I'm going to give you some predictions. It's going to be the second time this season that I'm in the same time zone as the Grand Prix, having been in Spain when the Spanish Grand Prix was on, although I wasn't at the circuit. I was at the other end of the Spanish country. So, yeah, quite an exciting weekend, isn't it? The British Grand Prix, always one to look forward to. And for me, it is just the best event of the year. I don't even have to go to the circuit to tell you that. I've been to the circuit a few times, and I can tell you that it is a wonderful event to attend. And it's probably only got better since I last went in 2012. And there are 5 reasons I've got here as to why it is the best track that F1 will visit each year. Number 1, the drivers love it. It's a proper driver's circuit. It's fast. It's got challenging corners. I mean, let's reel them off. Abbey, Copse, Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, Stowe. I mean, Vale and Club are pretty challenging as a combination. And there's such a range of corners. You've got the fast, high-speed corners that I've just mentioned, but then Village and Farm are tight and technical, and you've got to get good traction. So is Luffield. You've got to have a good, stable car to get around that right-hander and get good traction out onto the old pitch straight for Copse. So there's quite a challenge in terms of setup and driving style. So lots can happen, and that leads me into the second point, which is overtaking opportunities. There's quite a few overtaking chances around Silverstone. First of all, you can dive into Village or Farm or the Loop. I forget which one's which. I think Farm is the fast left-hander. But yeah, the switchback right-left in the first sector before the Wellington Straight. Opportunity to make a move on lap 1, and you know, if you get a good run on someone through Abbey, great chance to get through there as well. But if you don't get it done there, you can always make a lunge into Brooklands and make it stick through Luffield. You can, contrary to Christian Horner's beliefs, you can make an overtake at Copse. We've seen it done before. We've seen it go wrong before, of course, in 2021, but we have seen it go a bit better than that on several other occasions. But maybe the best opportunity is into Stowe Corner, a long DRS straight, not so much of a braking zone, which you know they maybe need to address with the next generation of cars in 2026. But if you don't get it done there, you can always make it stick into Vale and Club. We've seen it go right there. We've seen it go wrong there. Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel in 2019, of course. So it's a circuit with lots of opportunity. It gives the drivers plenty to go out in terms of a driving challenge and a racing challenge as well. You've got lots of different lines you can take to defend your line and protect or attack. So there's loads of action almost all the time around Silverstone. And yes, it is a fast circuit, a flowing circuit, lots of overtaking opportunities, but it is safe. And I've long been of the belief that Spa is the best track that F1 can go to. But recent events, in terms of the death of Delano last week and obviously Antoine Hubert in 2019, there's a problem, a fundamental problem with Spa, and I think we can't look past that. So for me at the moment, Silverstone is the best circuit because it's relatively safe, all things considered, for motorsport. I mean, you can never be 100% safe in a racing car. That's just sort of law of averages sort of thing. But we saw with Max Verstappen's accident in 2021, there was a 50-odd G impact, and he walked away from it. He was obviously a bit dazed and a bit bruised, but he was okay, and he went on to win the World Championship later that year. But there's a good chance of a safety car if a car stops or has an accident. But most importantly, the drivers are safe around this track. There's not a huge amount of opportunity to get hurt, although Zhou Guanyu had a very lucky escape last year with his barrel rolling Alfa Romeo at turn 1, and obviously the spectators at Abbey were very fortunate as well that the catch fencing did its job. So Silverstone, fast, flowing, exciting, but safe as well. Next is the atmosphere, and as I said earlier on, it's just a wonderful event to go to. The fans are super passionate. We get fans coming from all over the world, and it's always mentioned, but the fans don't just support the British teams or the British drivers, they share the support out for all the drivers and they cheer everybody. So I know what makes certain other circuits special. So like the Dutch Grand Prix, everyone's a Max Verstappen fan there, and it gets a bit partisan. The same in Italy at Monza, where it's Ferrari City, but it's absolutely fine because you've got other circuits that balance it out. Silverstone is one of those. Australia is another, although they want to cheer on their Australian drivers, but they share the love out to all the teams. And you need some circuits that are going to be a bit more partisan and create an atmosphere that way, but you need some that are going to create just a sense of community and everyone here for the same reason, just to enjoy the racing and share the love, basically. And my final reason why Silverstone is the best F1 circuit that F1 will visit, it's where F1 was born back in 1950, of course. The very first Grand Prix was held around the very old layout of Silverstone and won by Nino Farina, I believe. So it's F1 is coming home, isn't it? This is where it was born, and that's always an important thing to recognise, that this is where F1 started. My favourite corner on the Silverstone track is probably Stowe, and there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, when I've been to Silverstone to watch the Formula One Grand Prix there in 2011 and 2012, I've sat at Stowe on both occasions and seen plenty of action in terms of overtakes and cars going wide and a few spins. So there's lots of action there, and you can see down to Vale and Club. So any moves that start at Stowe and don't get quite finished, you can watch them be resolved through those series of corners. But also, it's such a challenging corner, even just on a qualifying lap, to see the drivers pushing the limits there is super exciting, because how late can you brake? You're carrying a lot of speed into the corner now, and you've got to carry that speed through the corner. You've got to make sure you don't exceed track limits. That might be another talking point this weekend, perhaps. But you've got to get it right on exit. If you get a little bit too wide on the curb, it compromises your run down to Vale, and then you're scrabbling maybe for grip and you overcommit into the chicane. You know, it can lead to undoing a good lap in qualifying and in the race. The best section for action at Silverstone is possibly Vale and Club. Moves can start in Stowe, and if they're not resolved there, they can be resolved in Vale and Club, and it can be side-by-side action. And of course, who can forget, through goes Hamilton. Of the many previous races around Silverstone, my favourite has to be the 2008 Grand Prix, won by my favourite driver, Lewis Hamilton. And you might say it's British bias and Lewis Hamilton bias, but at that point, Lewis was actually under an immense amount of pressure. It was the race after he'd crashed into Kimi Raikkonen in the pit lane in Canada, but he delivered this masterful wet drive after making a mistake in qualifying, where he only started fourth on the grid. Teammate Heikki Kovalainen was on pole. After 4 or 5 laps, Hamilton was in the lead after a superb start, where he went from fourth to second. And then from there, he was just in a class of one. His McLaren team made the right strategy calls on tyres, and at one point he was over a minute clear or something ridiculous. It was absolutely insane, and he won at an absolute canter. A superb performance, a real coming-of-age drive for Lewis Hamilton. We're almost halfway through the 2023 season, and there's several championship battles that I think we should be keeping an eye on this weekend in Silverstone. First of all, McLaren's Lando Norris against Alpine's Esteban Ocon. The Frenchman is only 7 points ahead of the Brit and has been on a general really good run of form in terms of scoring points. He didn't score points in Austria. He did rack up 30 seconds worth of penalties. But Lando Norris had a superb Austrian weekend in the upgraded MCL 60. Now, 7 points can be a quick swing, especially if Lando scores some solid points this weekend. And could Lando even catch Lance Stroll, who's a little bit further ahead of Ocon in the Aston Martin? And in the constructors, there's a 3-way scrap for P7. Haas, Alfa Romeo and Williams are separated by just 4 points. And you can argue that Williams have been the most consistent team out of those three this season. Alfa generally lack a bit of pace. Williams are fairly track specific, as we've seen this season. But Haas, for all their quali pace, seem to go backwards in races. So that could very quickly change around. And Williams are running a special home livery this weekend. So if they could score points with that, that would go down a real treat with the home crowd. And finally then, the predictions that I'm going to make for the British Grand Prix are as follows. Pole position is going to go to Red Bull's Max Verstappen. Now, I don't think the weather's going to play a part this weekend. Just stop oil protesters might play a part this weekend, so that could catch the drivers out, and they've got to be super alert for any people running on the track like they did last year. And touch wood, hopefully they choose not to go on the circuit while there's active sessions being run. But there can be disruptions to qualifying potentially, because we've seen it in other sporting events in this country recently, namely Wimbledon and during the Ashes cricket at Lord's. But I don't think that's going to stop Verstappen taking another pole position. And as for the race, I think Max is going to win the race. I mean, it would be stupid to look past him. He's in just this absurd run of form. It's almost illegal how good he and the car are performing at the moment. It's almost a touch unfair to everybody else. So maybe if he just didn't turn up this week and let everybody else have a chance. I mean, let's be sensible. He's not going to do that. He's going to turn up. He wants to win the race. For second and third, and if you've seen my 5 things that will definitely happen, I've predicted Perez not to be on the podium. Yes, he had a good run in Austria from 15th, but he should never have been 15th, let's be honest, to start with. And he got back up to third. But again, what Checo are we going to get? Is he going to be on form? Is he going to make another qualifying error? Is he going to get caught up in the race? Who knows? So I'm going for Lewis Hamilton to finish second. The Mercedes was strong in Silverstone last year. It looks after its tyres well, and that's going to be crucial because of the high-speed corners. And the Mercedes is generally better at high-speed tracks. So Mercedes are going to have a much better weekend this weekend than they did in Austria, where they were basically nowhere. And Lewis is going to put some smiles on British fans' faces with a podium appearance. And they're going to be joined on the podium by Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. Ferrari brought some upgrades to the Austrian Grand Prix last weekend, and they looked pretty quick. The problem for Ferrari is tyre wear, and whether they've managed to cure that around a high-speed, tyre-chewing track like Silverstone remains to be seen. Austria, if it was a bit hotter, would have had some tyre wear concerns, but it was cool on Sunday afternoon, so they didn't run into those problems that they've run into often this season. But of course, Perez is a threat. We don't know quite where he's going to end up. George Russell will want to be on the podium for the first time at the British Grand Prix. He'll want to finish the British Grand Prix this week instead of crashing out at the start of last year. And Carlos Sainz has been driving really well, except when drivers are intimidating him. And never, ever discount Fernando Alonso. He's won the British Grand Prix before. He's been on the podium several times before. But how good is that Aston Martin going to be around Silverstone? They struggle when there's a wide variation in corner demands in terms of speeds. And there is a little bit of that, as I've mentioned, at Silverstone. So where the Aston Martin filters out is going to be very, very interesting. So then my predictions. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen this weekend at Silverstone. Who is on pole? Who is the winner? And will there be a British driver on the podium? Let me know in the comments. For now, though, I'll see you next time. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a nice big thumbs up. Share the video with people who you think might enjoy it. Subscribe for more Grand Prix content. And thanks very much for watching.